you noticed like how many film composers these days seem to be writing concert music? It's pretty wild.
It is, yeah.
And that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today.
Cool.
We've got articles, we've got interviews, and even some quotes from the composers themselves.
That's great.
So the big question is, why are so many film composers venturing from the silver screen to the world of like quote-unquote classical music?
Well, it's interesting because it wasn't always like this.
Right.
For a good chunk of the 20th century, there was like this big divide between concert hall music and film music.
Yeah, it feels like there was almost like a hierarchy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the concert hall was seen as like the domain of serious music,
Right.
while film scores were kind of relegated to the background. But things have definitely shifted, The classical world is becoming way more receptive to like the sounds and the techniques that are common to film music.
Yeah, and for the composers themselves, like what are they looking for? Are they looking for something different in the concert hall?
It seems that way.
And I think a prime example of this changing landscape is the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra, or ELCO.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, founded back in 1968 by studio musicians. So, they kind of always had a foot in both worlds.
So they were ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
You could say that. And their current executive director, Ben Cadwallader, is really actively working to eliminate that division, right? Between concert hall and film music.
Absolutely.
They're even using their annual galas to celebrate major figures in film music.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. That's a pretty strong statement.
It is.
What do you make of this blurring of the lines between these two worlds?
I think it's a reflection of how musical tastes are evolving.
Okay.
Audiences are more open to different styles and different genres. Orchestras are responding to that.
So it's kind of a two-way street.
Yeah.
The composers are drawn to concert hall, and then the concert halls are embracing film music.
Exactly. And when we talk about bridging this gap, John Williams is like a name that we have to mention. Oh, of course. Yeah, he's synonymous with film. But how has he contributed?
Well, composers like Eric Wolfgang Korngold and Miklos Rosa, they wrote concert music even before John Williams did.
Okay.
But Williams' output is just remarkable. He's written over a dozen concertos. He's got another piano concerto slated to appear in 2025.
Wow. So,
It's not just a side project, but it's something he's dedicated to.
yeah, and his concertos are performed and recorded by leading orchestras and soloists worldwide.
It's not just about yeah, and it's interesting to consider the perspective of conductors who have championed film composers for concerts. And one of those perspectives is what makes this perspective
Well, Slacker
He's talked about how in the mid-century, this academic formalism put all this pressure on film composers to write more abstract concert music. But he contrasts that with today's greater acceptance of diverse styles.
Yeah,
So it's interesting.
that's really interesting. And do you think that shift in attitude has kind of opened the door for more film composers to write for the concert hall?
I think it definitely has been a contributing factor.
Okay.
And we are kind of witnessing a boom in concert works by these composers,
Yeah.
both established names and rising stars.
So can you give us some examples of this new wave of composers and their works?
Sure. So there's Joe Hisaishi.
Hi.
He's known for his scores for Studio Ghibli films. He premiered a harp concerto with the Los Angeles Philharmonic.
Wow.
We've also got Tamar Kali, who scored films like Mudbound, premiering her Sea Island Symphony at Lincoln Center.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then of course we've got Michael Abels, the composer for Get Out and Nope.
Yeah, and Abels is interesting because he actually started as a concert hall before moving to film.
That's right.
Right.
He actually won a Pulitzer Prize for his opera, Kumar.
Oh, wow.
And he's got a guitar concerto and an oratorio to his credit as well.
That's amazing.
So his trajectory is very unique.
It is.
Yeah.
It seems like the concert hall offers these composers a different kind of creative space. What do you think draws them to it?
Well, I think artistic freedom is definitely a factor. There's no time codes, no producer notes. It's just pure musical expression.
Right.
But there are also inherent challenges in the concert hall.
Well, like what?
Well, think about about it. You've got to captivate the audience solely through the music.
Okay.
You don't have visuals or a storyline to kind of guide them.
Right, right.
So-
It's a different kind of storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. And even Michael Abels has acknowledged that not every film composer is actually interested in this challenge.
Sure.
But for those who are, it's a chance to really bring a fresh perspective to the concert hall.
And speaking of fresh perspectives, Danny Elfman's journey is quite interesting.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
He went from a self-taught rock musician to a film composer for like Batman to writing concertos and ballets.
Yeah, it's quite a range.
It really is.
Yeah,
He didn't even develop like an interest in classical music until he was a teenager.
that's right.
When he discovered composers like Stravinsky, Prokofiev, and Shostakovich,
Yeah.
and he was drawn to their adventurous spirit and their melodic strength.
Yeah, he really loved those big romantic melodies.
Pretty inspiring that he taught himself how to write his style. When he got his first commission for a concert work, he was warned that critics might win the award.
Yeah, not at all. He composed for ballet, he's written concertos for violin, cello, percussion. His cello concerto actually premiered with the Vienna Symphony Orchestra.
That's incredible.
It is.
But he hasn't abandoned his rock roots.
No, not at all.
According to Coachella.
He did, yeah. In 2022. 10 days after the cello concerto premiered in Vienna, he was performing industrial rock music at Coachella. It is.
Yeah, it really highlights his diverse musical personality.
It does.
He's just committed to exploring the breadth. He's very open about his journey and challenges.
Yeah, and early on in his career, he does
Right.
not
Yeah, he was building his what he was. And I think that was it's like he brought his own distinct voice to the
this whole trend so captivating.
concert. Interesting.
Yeah, it's challenging all those preconceived notions that we have about musical genres. And it opens up a world of possibilities.
That's awesome.
It is.
This has been a really great discussion so far.
It has.
We touched upon the historical context, we heard about the motivations, the challenges, and we explored some really fascinating examples of this crossover.
We did.
Before we move on though, I'm curious, what stands out to you the most about this trend? What has surprised you?
Well, what really fascinates me is this idea of storytelling in music and how it transcends genre.
Yeah.
Like Michael Abels said, anything that takes place in time ends up being storytelling.
Right.
That's pretty powerful.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Whether it's film or concert music, it's about creating an experience
Yeah.
for the listener. And that's what we'll explore further as we continue our deep dive. You mentioned how Michael Abels sees music as storytelling, regardless of the genre.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what are the stories that these film composers are bringing to the concert?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the kind of storytelling that film composers are known for, right?
Yeah.
It's often very grand, emotionally evocative, sometimes even operatic.
Right.
And these qualities, they translate really well to the concert hall.
So they're not necessarily trying to replicate film music in the concert hall, but rather using those storytelling skills
Right.
to create something new.
Exactly.
Yeah. And let's take Danny Elfman, for example.
Okay.
He was really drawn to the Romantic era composers, even though that wasn't exactly like the prevailing trend
Right.
in contemporary classical music.
He wasn't afraid to go against the grain.
Not at all. He just like embraced what he loved.
That's cool.
And you can hear that independent spirit in his concert works.
Like his cello concerto. Yeah, exactly like his cello concerto, which premiered with the Vienna Symphony Orchestra. You can hear those like sweeping melodies, the dramatic flourishes,
Yeah.
even a hint of that like gothic sensibility that he's known for.
So it's like he found a way to blend those two worlds.
He did, yeah.
That's awesome.
And remember the advice he got? To not lose his personality trying to prove something.
Yeah.
Seems like he really took that to heart.
It's a reminder that authenticity is powerful.
Yeah, it is.
What about other composers? Are they kind of taking similar approaches?
Many of them are, yeah.
Okay.
They're drawing on their diverse backgrounds and influences,
Right.
whether it's jazz, rock, or world music, and they're weaving those elements into their compositions.
So they're really expanding the very definition of what concert music can be.
I think they are, yeah.
That's
someone like Tamar Kali,
Okay.
whose background is rooted in like punk rock and experimental music.
Oh, wow.
And her Sea Island Symphony, which premiered at the Kennedy Center, is this really powerful exploration of Black Southern drawing on spirituals it's definitely a possibility. And that kind of speaks to the aspect of for some composers, it's not just about the artistic freedom. It's about amplifying marginalized voices to raise the pathway
and brought to America in the 19th century.
Right.
And Abels has said that he really wants to use music to center voices that have been silenced or marginalized.
Yeah, that's incredibly powerful.
It is. It's amazing.
It is.
It seems like these composers are really challenging, like what belongs in the concert hall.
They are.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the subject matter, but it's also about the musical language that they're using. They're blending genres, incorporating new technologies, and pushing the boundaries of like what's even considered classical music.
Yeah, it's really exciting to think about like all the possibilities.
It is.
Do you think this trend is changing the way that audiences experience concert music?
I think it is.
Okay.
Think about like younger generations who've grown up immersed in film music.
Right.
They're coming to the concert hall with completely different expectations.
Right.
They have a broader palette and they're willing to embrace all these new sounds.
So it's no longer about like highbrow versus lowbrow,
Right.
but more about like the quality of the music and the power of the story.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And as these composers continue to push the boundaries,
Yeah.
it's just going to become more diverse and more engaging.
Yeah, it makes me wonder,
Yeah,
what does this mean for like the future of music?
that is the question, isn't it? I think it's an exciting question.
Yeah.
This crossover could like revitalize the classical music world, where we're bringing in these new audiences and expanding the repertoire in ways that we can't even imagine.
It's like a breath of fresh air, you know, blowing away the cobwebs
Yeah,
and creating something vibrant and relevant.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the future without forgetting the past.
Right.
You know, finding connections, building bridges between these different worlds.
And it all comes back to that fundamental human need to tell stories
Yeah,
and share experiences through music.
absolutely.
That's beautiful.
It's what connects us, it's what moves us,
Yeah.
it's what makes us feel alive.
This has been such an amazing discussion.
You really have.
We went beyond the surface and we really explored like the deeper meanings and implications of this trend.
Yeah, it's been a journey of discovery.
It really has.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the advice that Danny Elfman received early on in his career?
Yeah.
Do you think it applies to all composers, regardless of genre?
That's a thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
I mean, this idea of staying true to oneself,
Right.
embracing your own unique voice,
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely relevant for any artist.
Right.
But how that manifests in the concert hall,
It's a conversation that I think we should definitely continue in the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore the implications of this trend for the future of music and dive deeper into what it means to be a composer in a world where the lines between genres are becoming increasingly blurred. So we've been talking about this trend of film composers writing for
reality experiences. All of that is breaking down barriers and allowing people to engage with classical music in ways that were never possible
It
before.
was a two-way street.
It is.
Technology is influencing the creation of the music and the way that it's consumed.
Exactly.
And that accessibility has got to have an impact on the concert hall too.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, audiences are becoming more adventurous,
Right.
more open to different styles and sounds.
It's a pretty exciting time to be a music lover.
Yeah, it is.
What advice would you give to aspiring composers who are interested in kind of bridging the gap between film and concert music?
I would say embrace your influences no matter how diverse they may be.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment, blend genres, push boundaries,
Yeah,
and most importantly, stay true to your own voice, your own unique perspective.
that's great advice.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance between innovation and authenticity.
Exactly. And you gotta remember that the world of music is constantly evolving. What might seem radical or unconventional today could be totally normal tomorrow.
It's true. It's a reminder to keep our ears open and our minds flexible.
I agree.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
It has been.
We explored the history, the motivations, the challenges, and the possibilities of this really cool trend.
It's been a pleasure to delve into this topic with you.
Yeah, this has been great.
Thanks.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
We hope you've come away with a deeper appreciation for the evolving world of music.
It's an exciting time to be a music fan,
It is.
for sure.
And the power of storytelling in all its forms.
Absolutely.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep listening, and keep those musical minds curious.